So having it removed is definitely a way to move forward.
Tonight, a First Nation in Ontario is claiming victory after a controversial cabin built on their land is ordered to come down.
The idea was to put this training together to knock down those walls so that somebody could succeed through what I have done or better than me.
A First Nations man's dream of becoming a pilot is leading to him creating the same opportunity for others.
You don't have to be an elected leader to be a change maker in community. Anybody can put their mind to whatever it is that they want to do.
And the first ever Indigenous Women Leadership Conference brings together prominent leaders from around the country. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The inquest last month into the mass stabbings on James Smith Cree Nation in September 2022 has already resulted in 33 recommendations for change. 14 more were announced today by the National Joint Board of Investigations for the Parole Board of Canada and Correctional Services Canada. Rachel May has the latest.
In August 2021, Miles Sanderson, the killer in the stabbing attacks, was on statutory release after completing a federal sentence for a number of offenses, including assault, uttering threats, and robbery. In May 2022, just 4 months before the attacks, he was unlawfully at large. The National Joint Board of Investigation, made of 6 people with expertise in criminal justice, policing, mental health, and conditional release systems, announced today that releasing Sanderson into the community was reasonable. There was 4 recommendations made for Correctional Service Canada, assessing risk for domestic violence, developing ways to administer psychological measures against domestic violence, addressing if offenders under supervised release are suicidal, and reinstating community corrections liaison personnel. The Parole Board of Canada had 10 recommendations, ranging from reviewing scheduling guidelines to reviewing how employees are trained to understand the risk of domestic violence in offenders. Both the Parole Board and Correctional Services are finalizing action plans to implement the recommendations. They're in consultation with James Smith Cree Nation. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Controversial cabin built on an Ontario lake will soon be removed. Mark and Peter Decoteau are both members of the Métis Nation of Ontario, or MNO. They used a claim of Métis rights to build the cabin. In November, the Temagami First Nation took legal action to have it taken down. According to Chief Shelley Moore-Frappier, Ontario's Ministry of Natural Resources sent Mark Decoteau a letter telling him to remove the cabin by June 1st. It was built in 2019 on Pond Lake, a 2-hour drive northeast of Sudbury. Since then, the community has been trying to have it removed. The chief says they are happy with the decision.
I guess it felt like a little bit of vindication. Because that's always been our position. So it shouldn't have been there in the first place. So having it removed is definitely a way to move forward.
Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami President Natan Chait met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa today. This photo op follows up on one from last week when the Prime Minister met with Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak. After posing for pictures and video, Obed told assembled media there are a number of issues ITK and the Liberal government need to work on.
Lots of conversations still to be had about, say, the implementation of Bill C-92, the Indigenous Child and Family Services Act. Also, the work that we continue to do together through the Inuit Crown Partnership, and then the government's adoption of the Inuit policy, also our framework on co-development of legislation, and many other very historic shifts in the relationship between Inuit and Canada.
The Yukon has started the process of creating a health authority that will act as an arm's-length agency to govern and deliver healthcare services. On Monday, the Yukon government tabled the new Health Authority Act in the territory's Legislative Assembly. The new health authority would operate in collaboration with First Nation governments in the territory. Officials say will also focus on addressing issues like eliminating systemic racism in healthcare and providing cultural safety and inclusive care for First Nations people. The Yukon and Nunavut are the only jurisdictions in Canada without a health authority. The chair of the Chiefs Committee on Health says it's important Indigenous peoples in the territory get the health services they need.
That they have a voice at the table, that we bring the voice of Yukon Indigenous population and all of our self-governing nations to the table, because it's that we're at the cusp of something amazing in Yukon, and I think we all need to work together.
And earlier today, the federal government also signed agreements totaling $86 million to improve health care in the territory. A Migma community in New Brunswick is revitalizing their language, not through formal instruction in classes, but as Angel Moore reports, by sitting down and listening to elders.
This is not a typical Migma language class. There is no assigned instructor. Here, everyone learns from each other and has a couple of laughs, including Vince Barlow of the Elsipogtog First Nation.
Yeah, it brightens up your day, really, you know what I mean? And Mi'kmaq language is a joyous language.
Elders and new speakers meet every Thursday in the band office at the Elnui Miniguk Migma Nation to speak Migma in a casual setting. Coordinated by Ashley Sunnypass, it's called Language Socials.
When you come, you have the opportunity to not only learn the language, but you're learning stories, you're learning about different medicines, you're learning about your ancestors. There's so much that's tied into it that people get to hear about.
Harrison Millier travels from the Elsipogtog First Nation to attend the socials. He says speaking Mi'kmaq is connecting with ancestors.
A lot of times we forgot our ancestors, and when we talk over here and when we bring them back, it brings back that feelings of you know, and they're still around. Yeah.
Barlow is a fluent speaker, but he says the gathering helps him just as much as the people he teaches.
And you remember words that you haven't used for about 50 years, you know what I mean? They come up and it's, oh yeah, okay, you know, and the simplest of words you forget because you're not using them.
The weekly gathering includes new learners, such as Katrina Sauk of the Elnu Miniguk Mi'kmaq Nation.
Learning Mi'kmaq makes me proud to be an Indigenous woman, a Mi'kmaq woman, and just being able to teach my children as well, because I didn't learn a lot of Mi'kmaq from my mother.
So far, Sauk is teaching her children words such as,
this is kind of like a lot of command words like "unka me," like "look at me," "nestuin," "did you hear me?" My favorite at bedtime is "gezalo," is "I love you." "Namotes," "I'll see you again," and "ajimpa," go to bed.
Sunnypass began the program 3 years ago so the elders could hear their language and teach others about the Mi'kmaq culture. Sunnypass hopes to expand the program.
You know, maybe one day we can have a Mi'kmaq language festival of our own here in our community where we would be able to do these type of things and share our Mi'kmaq language with so many different people. So I sort of have that under my hat of something that I would like to see.
Angel Moore, APTN National News, Elnui Miniguk Mi'kmaq Nation.
Good stuff. Thanks, Angel. Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, why prominent women leaders are gathering in Montreal.
It's women's rightful time to rise up and take their place and lead our people.
Welcome back. One man's dream to fly high in the sky is now creating opportunities for other Indigenous people to become pilots. Sav Jonesa has that story.
Atik Mason feels right at home amongst the airplanes at the Royal Aviation Museum of Western Canada in Winnipeg. It's no surprise, he is a pilot after all, but the road to his dream career was not always clear.
When I was a kid, that's when aviation kind of really got the bug with me. And that was when I was flying to and from my reserve in northern Manitoba, in St. Teresa Point, Manitoba.
St. Teresa Point First Nation is a place only accessible by plane or winter ice roads in northern Manitoba. Mason says a trip to the cockpit during a flight as a child got him interested in aviation, but music and art soon took over. He became a Juno Award-winning musician with his band, Burt Project One. Despite his success, he says a rock star life wasn't healthy, especially as a child of a residential school survivor.
The music was great, we were having success and everything, but there came a point in my life where I really had to decide to do things better and to be more healthy. And that's when aviation started to come back into my life.
He started flight training in 2016 and received a $40,000 scholarship from Perimeter Aviation 2 years later. That airline services remote communities in northern Manitoba and Ontario.
It was the scholarship that finally kicked it forward for me, where I had the resources where I could really commit to training full-time, and that changed everything.
Mason soon became Perimeter's first Indigenous pilot from a First Nation they serve. His story gave their parent company, Exchange Income Corporation, an idea, the Atik Mason Indigenous Pilot Pathway Program.
The idea was to put this training together to knock down those walls so that somebody could succeed, do what I have done, or better than me, I hope, someday, and give back to the communities.
With support from Manitoba, Kiwetinawi, Okamakanok, the program offers fully funded flight training to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who dream of becoming professional pilots. The hope is to have more pilots from the northern communities they serve.
A lot of these people that are coming into this program are maybe potentially one or two of the only people from their community that's ever tried to do this in the history of their community.
Training for the program takes place in Thompson, Manitoba and Rankin Inlet, Nunavut, in an effort to keep students near their home communities. Housing and food are provided during the training period. Graduates from the Atik Mason Indigenous Pilot Pathway Program are guaranteed job offers at the end of their training.
But in the type of flying that you do at Perimeter or any of these northern airlines, it's like freaking the maverick of flying, man. You're dealing with bad weather, small airports, not the greatest conditions. The weather is different every day. Every situation you do, every approach is going to be different. So, there's no mundaneness. You're not sitting in a cubicle staring at a screen all day.
Mason is a mentor and instructor for the program and says flying will always be part of the North. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Pretty cool. I've been meaning to check that place out too. Looks great. The first ever Indigenous Women Leadership Conference took place in Montreal on Friday. The event was attended by prominent women leaders from various nations across the country. The goal of the conference was to inspire, empower, and provide women with a platform to connect and share. Maricela Amador spoke with several of the leaders in attendance.
The purpose of today's event is to connect the many nations that have come to participate today.
What better way to celebrate International Women's Day than to bring together a group of powerful Indigenous women for the first iteration of the Indigenous Women Leadership Conference?
You have to build your network outside of your nation.
The event was described as historic by Grand Chief Mandy Goulmasti and was organized by the Cree Women EU Itchy Association.
Pour moi, être la première femme élue comme grand chef, c'est dur parce qu'il y a des questions où je pouvais demander à les anciens grands chefs, mais de temps en temps, il y avait des questions que peut-être c'est vraiment plus une réponse de femme que j'avais besoin. C'est une des autres buts de cette conférence que moi aussi, je peux trouver d'autres leaders qui peut être assis avec moi, de me donner des réponses.
And the tide appears to be changing for women, as Goulmasti highlighted that for the first time, half her council is made up of women. The sold-out conference was meant to inspire, empower, and provide women with a platform to connect and share.
It's women's rightful time to rise up and take their place and lead our people.
The Grand Chief of the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, Kasanahawis Sky Deer, emphasized the importance of having women in leadership positions.
I think everybody's path to leadership is different and how they get there, but all it takes is a spark, right? And someone to interest them to say, hey, I can make a difference. And I said it as well today. You don't have to be an elected leader to be a change maker in community. Anybody can put their mind to whatever it is that they want to do.
The conference featured a variety of workshops and panel discussions for attendees. It included speakers like Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse and Lieutenant Governor of Quebec Manon Janotte, among others.
Il y a des jeunes femmes. Il faut que tu développes pour le futur. C'est pour eux autres.
Otterize added that the younger generation is watching, underscoring how today's women leaders are setting up a powerful example for future generations.
Pour le futur, de voir plus de femmes, d'aussi de voir une balance entre les hommes et les femmes.
Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
Time for one last quick break, but you will want to stick around. We'll have a look at some of the highlights from the Arctic Winter Games coming up.
I'm feeling really good. I feel a wee bit overwhelmed.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And today's submission comes from APTN's Danielle Parody, who captured this shot of polar bears while recording her podcast in Resolute Bay. Thanks for sharing, Danielle. And if you want to learn more about her podcast, visit aptnnews.ca/theplacethatthaws. If you want to be featured as our photo of the day, email your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 7 above for Fredericton, +5 in Halifax. Cloudy and -4 for Kuujjuaq, snow and 4 below in Nain. 6 above in Montreal, +7 for Val-d'Or. +5 in Sault Ste. Marie, 12 above in North Bay. 10 in Thunder Bay, 5 with snow in Sioux Lookout. -1 for God's Lake, 0 in Norway House. +4 in Winnipeg, 2 above with snow in Dauphin. +2 with snow in Regina, -1 and snow in Saskatoon. 1 below in Meadow Lake and Buffalo Narrows. A mild day across northern Alberta, 8 above in Peace River and Fort McMurray. +7 in Edmonton, 9 above in Lethbridge. 11 for Vancouver, Penticton and Kamloops. 5 in Prince George, +4 with snow in Smithers. -23 and snow in Old Crow, 2 above and snow in Whitehorse. -1 for Yellowknife, 19 below with flurries in Norman Wells. -19 and snow in Sax Harbor, -12 in Pawatuck. 12 below for Chesterfield, -20 in Baker Lake. 23 below for Resolute, -21 in Joe Haven. More than 2,000 athletes are currently in Alaska competing in one of my favorite events and the biggest sporting competition in the north. Our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs brings you more.
The Arctic Winter Games, known as the Olympics of the North, held every 2 years since 1970, bringing together athletes from circumpolar regions to compete in traditional and Western sports. Monday, March 11th was the first full day of competition. Overall, Alaska holds the top medal count with 26 Ulus, including gold in Arctic triple jump and biathlon. In second place with 22 Ulus, Team Yukon. Last night, the Yukon men's basketball team claimed a close victory over Alaska, 69-66. Meanwhile, other highlights include Team Alberta men's in the lead for volleyball, edging out Team Alaska. And Team Galactic Nunat, formerly known as Team Greenland, earned a respectable gold Ulu in Arctic sports for head pull open male. The centuries-old hunting and fishing methods of northern people were passed down through sports like these. Team Northwest Territories' Shauna McLeod made history as the first AWG Open Women's Dene Games Ulu winner.
I'm feeling really good. I feel a wee bit overwhelmed. I came here 18 years ago as a juvenile female. And I honestly can't remember how I did back then. I know I got a third and was kind of taken back, like, are you sure that's right? You know, just like coming from a small community and, you know, competing in sports, sometimes that's difficult.
The purpose of stick pull was to sharpen Dene fish grabbing skills, strengthening hand and arm muscles. They would grease a stick with bear fat to mimic a slippery fish.
Yeah, I worked many years behind the scenes with the Dene Games TSO, Dene Games NT. And so I got to hear bits and pieces from the Arctic Winter Games International Committee of, maybe opening it up to the open women, maybe not, kind of going back and forth, and all of the athletes and, old veterans kind of asking, like, is this the year? Is this the year? Are they finally doing it?
Meanwhile, Jasper Charlie of the Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation in Yukon grabbed gold for men's 2006 and later stick pull category.
It took me a long while to actually realize I won. Well, I've been playing hand games since I was 7, 10, but I just started doing this last year. People take this too seriously and they don't end up having fun. I think that's the key to winning. I try talking to people, making jokes, try to keep myself smiling, laughing.
Charlie's father is also competing in the open category for Dene Games.
But I feel like the connections you make here is a lot easier to make than somewhere like Neg, as we all share similar backgrounds and cultures. We need to keep this going for generations and generations, or else it'll be lost of time.
Dene Games run every day with different events such as snow snake, hand games, finger pull, and pole push. Charlotte Mort Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Awesome stuff. Looking forward to hearing how the pin collection's going. I know Charlotte will keep us updated on that. Our guest on tonight's all-new episode of Face to Face has been working in the film and television industry for 2 decades, but has just released his first feature film. The thriller Cold Road, starring Roseanne Superno, is about an Indigenous woman and her dog being hunted by a stranger in a semi-truck on an isolated highway in the north. Writer-director Kelvin Redver says if it were up to him, he would have released his first feature film a decade ago.
Like, it takes all of us 3, 4, 5, maybe more years to get to making one of these. And I've been in rooms with, like, industry distributors, like with people who make movies, and they'll just look me in the eye and say, movies like this aren't successful, or like that Indigenous stories aren't financially viable, so we aren't going to make your movie. And it's frustrating. And I think that we would all like to get past that. And the only way is to actually move the needle of people, like lots of people watching them and making these movies, successful.
And you can watch our entire conversation with Kelvin Redvers in less than 2 minutes from now. Lots to talk about with the Dene filmmaker, including why he was turned away from a red carpet screening at the Cannes Film Festival a couple of years ago. That's on Face to Face in just about a minute's time. We're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGwitch, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.